How many undrafted free agents the Bengals gonna put on their roster? Scope! What is up, Bengals fam? It's your boy Mike coming back at you with another Hood Daily. I want to go over the undrafted free agents. The Bengals have had some pretty decent undrafted free agent signings in the past. I think the biggest one that we can talk about is Vontaze Burfict, right? Undrafted free agent out of Arizona State. They're pretty decent at finding these guys. So what I want to do is take a look at, I'm not going to go over all of them, but I want to go over the ones that I think have a shot at making the squad. And even there are a couple guys I think could get snaps this year and potentially next year if they stay on the squad. So let's start by taking a look at some of the wide receivers. Two guys I want to talk about here. They signed a few wide receivers. There are two of them specifically I want to talk about. One being Kendrick Pryor out of Wisconsin. Kendrick Pryor is a 5'10.5", 183 pounds. He ran a 4.38 40 at his pro day at Wisconsin. Really good athleticism as well as his agility grade. He looks like a slot receiver to me, like an NFL slot receiver when I watch him. He's got the quickness and agility. He's got good hands. He's a really good scheme fit for the Bengals, specifically if they're looking for a guy that's going to be the next slot receiver after. They're probably not going to be able to keep Tyler Boyd. If they do, great, but I think that they're going to prioritize their young wide receivers. Tyler Boyd's going to demand more money than they're going to be willing to pay him. So they're looking for a future slot receiver. I think because they weren't able to grab one that they liked in the draft, just from the way the draft fell to them, they didn't feel comfortable drafting any of those receivers that were available. They brought in some of these undrafted free agent guys, and I think Pryor fit is going to be part of their plans in the future because he is a really good slot receiver fit. He's specifically really good on vertical routes. He's good at finding seams out of the slot position, getting up the field. With that really quick speed. He's also really good agility, so he's good on crossers and short option routes. So if he's got the mental to pick up the Bengals offense and think along the lines of Joe Burrow, this could be your slot. This could legitimately, he could get slot receiver reps this year if he's just athletic enough. He's got NFL athleticism and NFL speed, and that's half the battle, right? So the other one, you may have actually heard of this one. His name is Javen Hailey. It's spelled H-E-I-L-I-G-H, but I watched some broadcasts, I watched some highlights of this guy, and the announcers were pronouncing it Hailey. So I think in previous videos when I talked about him, I may have said Hailey, just because that was the closest word in my brain to what that spelling looks like, but it's apparently Hailey. Here's the thing about Javen Hailey. He was the #1 wide receiver option at Coastal Carolina. Between he and the tight end that you've probably heard of, Isaiah Likely, they made up like 90% of, like probably 90%. This is just a guess, but 85+% of the Coastal Carolina air offense was between Javen Hailey and Isaiah Likely. Highly likely that they made up a lot of those yards. See what I did there? But the thing to worry about Javen Hailey, 6 foot tall, 202 pounds, so he's decent sized. You know, he's roughly the size of Tyler Boyd. But the problem is he's not very fast, and you can see that in his contested catch rate per PFF. Now, PFF actually did rank this guy. He was, if you take a look at the PFF big board, Javen Hailey was the 217th ranked player for PFF. He put up an 89.6 overall grade. Now, granted, he also had a 54.5% contested catch win rate, which is super high. He had crazy production as well, but that contested catch rate is because he can't get separation from the the corners that Coastal Carolina plays against, which isn't good, and that shows in his testing, right? It's because he ran a 4.63 40. You know what I mean? Not very good. Not an elite vertical. Although he's known as kind of a high point contested catch guy. Not a super great vertical. Not a very good broad jump. Not very good agility testing. The problem is the 4.63 40, every corner in the NFL runs faster than that, right? Every corner in the NFL is more athletic than Javen Hailey. So if he's going to make it work, it's got to be as an outside receiver. He's not going to take the top off of defenses. NFL defenses are not going to roll coverage to him, so he will get one-on-one looks. So if he's going to win, it's going to be there. It's going to be being put one-on-one situations against the second or third or even fourth best coverage guy for the defense, and they're just going up and winning contested catches. Because of his lack of speed, though, I really see it. I mean, this was the biggest reason why Auden Tate never saw the field. He just didn't have the speed attribute. He had literally everything else. If you gave Auden Tate just a little bit more speed, man, he would have been an absolute nightmare, and he already kind of was. But same thing here with Javen Hailey. So I think his ceiling is like, just short of what Auden Tate's is. He's not as big, but he's the same style of receiver. Really good hands, really good at going up and finding the ball at the right spot to where the defender can't get to it. So keep an eye on him. He may surprise some people. Let's talk about a couple of offensive linemen that I really liked. So the Bengals did sign a couple offensive linemen in the UDFA class that I think one of them, I think they both have a chance to potentially make the roster, make the team. But one of them has a shot, I think, to actually be maybe not the starter, because I don't think he's going to play guard, but the #1 backup tackle off of the bench. I mean, I think he could compete with the role that like Isaiah Prince played last year, where if either of the tackles go down, Isaiah Prince is the first tackle off the bench. This guy, Devin Cochran, offensive tackle out of Georgia Tech, is, I think, potentially one of those guys. And the reason I say that is because he was a dominant standout at the Senior Bowl this year. Here are the details on Devin Cochran. First of all, he tested like a freak. This guy is a freak that fell out of the NFL draft, right? He played, and maybe it's because of he had this weird situation where he started his college career at Vanderbilt. He had a redshirt year as a freshman. He played, I think, 1 or 2 years at Vanderbilt. Then he transferred to Georgia Tech, and then sat out the COVID year, took the optional year to sit out the COVID year, and then he played this past season as a senior, and absolutely just played super well. So, like, as you can see here, 9.16 RAS score, 6'7", 306, right? Not as thick and filled out as you would want a 6'7" guy to be, but still not bad. You can still put more weight on that. Pretty good bench press, not great. But the athletic testing is, like, look at the explosion scores, 80th percentile vertical, 93rd percentile broad jump. He 5.1. He's only slightly slower than Javen Hailey, right? So 5.1 40-yard dash, which puts him in the 84th percentile for offensive linemen. Really good agility grades. And I watched some of his tape at some of the reps he was taking at the Senior Bowl. I read a tweet. It was from a guy who said he was at the Senior Bowl and watched all of the reps for the offensive lineman. Devin Cochran lost a total of 1 rep on the day that he watched. So that's just for 1 day. But this guy, I mean, it's a little bit of weird. He bounced around. Maybe that's why he didn't get as much smoke pre-draft and leading into the draft as other people. But I think Devin Cochran could be a guy to take a look at in camp as competing here. But the other guy they signed was Ben Brown, a guard out of Ole Miss. He didn't test, so I can't really tell you if he's a freak or not. Chances are he's not if he didn't test, but I think he had some injuries. He did put up a 70.2 PFF grade this past year in 2021 but that was only in 6 games. He got injured, which is why he didn't test. But when he was a freshman at Ole Miss, he started all of the games his freshman year, and he made the SEC all-freshman team that year. And he even moved to center and made the adjustment in 2020, and then he tore a tendon in his bicep, which, he was still projected actually in this draft, even with all of that other stuff. There were sites I was seeing him projected in the 5th or 6th round of this draft. It didn't end up happening. He fell out of the draft, and the Bengals scooped him up. So if he has another versatile, flexible guy here, he can play center, he can play guard. We'll have to see, though, with all the time he's had off of football with these injuries and all this other stuff, if he's still, what he's got left in the tank. But that's another guy, really interesting dude, Ben Brown. Keep an eye on him potentially making this roster. So the next guy to take a look at, there's a cornerback out of Peru State. His name is Delante Hood. So Hood posted a really good athletics testing. He's 5'10", he's 5'11", 192 pounds. He ran a 4.38 40, right, which is 95th percentile for corners. He ran a 4.2 shuttle, which is the 65th percent, and the 3 cone. He was an 82nd percentile. With a really good broad jump as well, 10 foot 5 inches broad jump. So some explosion there, some athleticism there. He's obviously really fast. Played against really bad competition. So I mean, partially what we're going to learn is, can he translate any of the skills that he showed at Peru State to the NFL? If he can, this guy could be a corner that you see stick around. Delante Hood from Peru State may end up being, and you know what, at 4.38 at that speed, if he can catch a punt, I'm not sure. I didn't look to see if he's a punt returner, but the Bengals are kind of constantly in search for a punt returner. Another guy to take a look at here is a guy that, if you watched any of my mock drafts, I took this guy a couple times late, like in the 7th round, and his name is Carson Wells out of Colorado. I believe PFF lists him as an edge player, but he's actually a kind of a 4-3 stand-up outside linebacker. Like, he plays kind of more of a Sam position in the NFL. I think that's where he's going to translate, and that's mainly because he's only 6'2.5", 241. He's not going to be able to put his hand down in the NFL and rush off the edge. So I think this is more of a versatile outside linebacker type of pickup for the Bengals. I think he's going to be, I'll put it to you this way, in position drills, he's going to be running with the linebackers, not the edge players, right? So Carson Wells, he'll spend most of the time, with those linebackers, and specifically as an outside linebacker that rushes the passer in stunts and off the edge every once in a while, but mainly has that outside contain responsibility in the run game. He could make the team as this could be a special teams type dude, right? Didn't test terribly well. 4.61 for a linebacker is decent. That's the 86th percentile. Otherwise he's kind of a just above average athlete, right? There's nothing really too bad on his athletic score testing, nothing too great either. So, kind of a special teams type of dude is what I see. I don't know that he's going to splash. I didn't watch too much of his tape, but I think one guy that we want to transition to right here that I think a lot of Bengals fans are going to be intrigued by because of geographics and the need, I think, the perceived need and the real need for youth at the tight end position, and that is Justin Rigg out of Kentucky, right? So Justin Rigg played it. First of all, you have to remember he played at Kentucky. That means Kentucky actually essentially uses their tight end as a 6th offensive lineman. They just don't have an offense that really focuses on getting the tight end the ball. So there isn't a lot of film to watch on Justin Rigg to see what it looks like, right? And so of the routes I saw him run, he's a huge dude. So he's almost 6'6", 260 pounds, right? So great size. And there are plenty of reps of him run blocking and pass blocking, which he can absolutely do. The issue becomes when you try to get passing reps, right? Because how weird the Kentucky offense is. So, but he does show some athleticism and knowledge of coverages in the route trees, because you see him running when he recognizes zone. I saw him a couple times running, bending his route toward where the soft spot of those zones were. He's got decent hands, so he can do the things that you want your tight end to do, but right now, I feel like his ceiling is tight end 3 on this team. I don't see him taking reps from Drew Sample. So I think that if he makes this squad, it will be as a tight end 3, and it'll be special teams and back and basically injury security if Hayden Hurst or Drew Sample goes down. The real issue here, though, is he ran a 4.8 40, which is pretty good for a tight end. It's not terrible. The real issue here is that, from a offensive weapon perspective, a tight end that the defense is going to worry about whenever they are game planning to play the Bengals, they have one guy. It's Hayden Hurst. If Hayden Hurst goes down, if Hayden Hurst isn't the guy that it looked like he was going to be when he was drafted in the 1st round by the Ravens, if he's not that he's not that guy, the Bengals really don't have much in the way of a threat at tight end, right? So, you know, you're looking for Drew Sample to take a big leap and do stuff that he's not really shown he's capable of doing. He's a little bit of a clunky athlete. We'll see how smooth. Justin Rigg actually looks smoother, looks like a smoother athlete than Drew Sample does. So we'll see. We'll see if this guy can make the squad. But those are the guys I wanted to go over. They signed more people. If you want to go check them out. You can just Google the Bengals UDFA signings. You'll see a bunch of articles pop up. And basically, I think, you know, these guys, obviously these are UDFA signings, so you're not expecting any of them to start necessarily, but these could be really good depth pieces. And I really, from what I've seen, I like the players that they're signing because they're following the rules that they set in the draft of the kinds of prospects they like to see, which is, you know, production, athleticism in the testing, right? And leaders, team leaders, right? But that's going to do it for me today, guys. Wanted to show you some of these cool players, and I will continue to keep an eye on them and give you updates throughout the offseason. But until next time, Bengals fan, I've been Mike. This has been Who Daily. See ya.